Before I start this video, I want to give a huge shout out to this random person on Reddit that posted this new link about 2 weeks ago. And what makes this link very exciting is that if you remember in the past, I've talked about how difficult and confusing it is to actually find a history of cards that were banned. And I got tagged in this post a few times, and oh my god guys, it is so darn good. It is so much better than any of the posts that anyone sent me. No offense if you tried to help me out, that's perfectly fine, but this one is amazing. So when you click over here, what's cool about this one, better than any of the other ones that I saw, especially one of the biggest ones that people kept sending me, is that this one, when you scroll, and it's going to sound really easy, but when you scroll to the right or the left and you see which cards are limited, which cards are forbidden, do you notice how the cards that are on this list stay on the left hand side even if you scroll to the right? I'm sure that's really easy to set up, but every single other list that I've seen of this history of the forbidden limited list has not had this ability. It makes it way harder, especially when you scroll down like 10 years, just remembering which line you're supposed to be looking at. This one is made beautifully. It is super helpful, and also you might notice that the cards on this list, specifically the monster cards, are separated by which type of monster they are. We have synchros and Xyz and links, and that's really good for someone like me, because in the past I had to literally go through every single card alphabetically and see if I see any fusion monsters to make a video like this. So whoever made this list, I don't know who you are. I don't know if I inspired making this list. I really doubt it, but thank you so much. You have been a huge help in making this video. Anyway, in today's video, we are talking about every single banned fusion monster in Yu-Gi-Oh's history. And fusion monsters are in a really weird spot when you think of conventional fusion summoning using polymerization. Of all the monsters that we're going to talk about in today's video, none of these, in most cases, were used with polymerization. Almost all of them found a different way to be summoned, and that really goes to show that polymerization and using that card with a couple monsters in your hand or on your side of the field just isn't an efficient way to actually perform fusion summons. Even back in old school Yu-Gi-Oh, you didn't see a ton of fusion decks using cards like polymerization. We have a lot of cards that we'll talk about in today's video that can sort of circumvent that huge downside, and when you look at decks these days, or even in the past 5-10 years that perform fusion summons, oftentimes one of the most important parts of those strategies is whatever archetypal fusion summoning card that they actually get. For decks that don't have those but want a fusion summon, oftentimes they are less competitive. But in cases like decks like Invoked, where you have Invocation, that is a very good fusion spell that makes them not have to play polymerization. I'm not saying polymerization is completely unusable. It has seen some competitive success, but I couldn't help but notice as I was doing the research for this video that all of these cards weren't summoned with polymerization, despite the fact that for many people that haven't played Yu-Gi-Oh in a while, that's what they think of when they think of fusion summons. They think specifically of polymerization, and yet it's not really a crucial part of the best fusion monsters in the game. But what was the very first banned fusion monster? Well, in fact, it was Thousand Eyes Restrict, which was banned in September of 2006 after being limited for a few formats. If you've played any GOAT format, which is 2005, you probably understand how powerful this card used to be. Basically, the main combo you would do is you would activate Scapegoat, summon a bunch of tokens on your opponent's turn, and then once your turn rolled around, you would tribute at least one of the tokens for a card called Metamorphosis that let you tribute a monster and then special summon a fusion monster from your extra deck with the same level as the tributed monster. The GOAT tokens were level 1, so you could summon Thousand Eyes Restrict, and in that format it was very difficult to deal with a monster that could steal your opponent's cards and prevented things from attacking. And overall, one of the best combos with this thing was that you could use Tsukiyomi to flip it face down and then flip it back face up and then steal another monster. It just locked your opponent out unless they had specific removal for this card, and back in 2005 there wasn't nearly as much removal and effect negation as there is in 2019. It wasn't until 10 years later that this card would finally come off the ban list and be limited for one format before after that going to unlimited, and that's where it stayed for the last couple years. And what's interesting is that this card was limited for a very specific reason and in a lot of players' mind, and we'll talk about this a little bit later on in this video, but the gist here is that a lot of people at that time were using instant fusion to summon Elder Entity Norden, and in those decks they very often would play 3 3 copies of Instant Fusion and then 2 copies of things to summon, just 2 copies of Norden. But on this ban list, Norden got limited, and on that same ban list, Thousand Eyes Restrict went to limited as well. This meant that while players could still use Instant Fusion with their 1 copy of Norden, a lot of them wanted a second copy of something to summon, and for many players that ended up being Thousand Eyes Restrict. Admittedly, this didn't really end up staying the norm. A lot of people found the card wasn't good enough in 2016, so they just played the 1 copy of Norden with their 3 Instant Fusions. However, right now, this card is currently seen play in a variety of decks playing Instant Fusion, specifically Orcus decks, and Orcus decks really like this card. It's a dark monster, so it gets around the Orcus restriction, steals your opponent's monsters. It's just overall a very good piece of removal in a deck that already wants to play cards like Instant Fusion to get their combos started. So while this card might not be as format defining in 2019, it still is seeing legitimate competitive success in one of, if not the best decks of the current format. Just goes to show that even though the card was still very good back in the day, it can still be good even right now, although not as powerful as it once was. Keep in mind though, just like originally, it is still not being summoned with polymerization. It's being summoned with Instant Fusion, a card that we'll talk about a few more times in this video. There was a 9-year break where no fusion monsters got banned, and it wasn't until Shaddoll Construct in November of 2015 where actually we saw another fusion monster on the Forbidden and Limited list in the banned category. This card was banned in the TCG for a very long time. It wasn't unbanned until 4 years later, very recently in January of 2019. In the OCG, and I don't have the exact dates for this because I'm a TCG player, but in the OCG it's been unbanned for a while. In Shaddoll's, at the time of making this video, just won a contest actually in the OCG. That means that they're going to get a structure deck in the near future. That's pretty exciting, and it pretty much means that Shaddoll Construct will eventually go to 2 or 3 copies of deck in the TCG. And also keep in mind that a bunch of Shaddoll monsters are getting reprinted in Battles of Legend Heroes Revenge releasing next week, which means that Konami is going to want to push more people to play Shaddolls. And one of the best ways to do that, or one of the easiest ways for Konami to actually do that, is just make Shaddoll Construct go to semi-limited or unlimited. While this card was banned during that 4 years, so many people cried out for this card to go to limited. Shaddolls are a huge fan favorite deck. I mean, that's why they won that OCG contest. People love Shaddolls, either as an engine or as an entire deck. It doesn't really matter, but people really love this archetype, and Shaddoll Construct is at the center of all of the combos. And right now we're seeing Shaddolls being played with just Winda, but I think if Construct went to 2 or 3, maybe once again we could see a legitimate Shaddoll strategy, maybe even just a rogue version of the deck, see competitive success. And I know I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but one of the reasons that Shaddoll Construct was so powerful was because you weren't summoning it with polymerization. You in fact were using Shaddoll Fusion, which is one of the best fusion spells out there that lets you send monsters from your deck to the graveyard to fusion summon, just as long as your opponent controls an extra deck monster. And that's a pretty strong effect because a lot of people are summoning from the extra deck, especially back in 2014, 2015 on the first turn. So to use Shaddoll Fusion to send any light to the graveyard and any Shaddoll to the graveyard to summon Construct, that's just a ton of advantage. Even if the light monster doesn't do anything, the Construct sends another Shaddoll to the grave, so you're at least triggering 2 Shaddoll effects, and then maybe the light monster sets up further plays. It was a ton of advantage, and once again, just because the card is good doesn't mean it's going to be playable. The key part here is that it has a very strong fusion spell to go with an already good effect. And then we have Elder Entity Norden, a card I've already spent a little bit of time talking about, but this card was so hyped. This is one of those cards that we knew about in the OCG for a while, and it took a long time to come to the TCG, and whenever that happens, people always are worried if the card is going to be power crept. But in the case of Norden, the card was still very strong. Everyone was playing Instant Fusion. If you were playing any level 4 monsters in your entire deck, you were going to play Instant Fusion. Using Elder Entity Norden with Instant Fusion meant that anytime you drew the Instant Fusion and had a level 4 monster in the graveyard, you could instantly summon any rank 4 monster from your extra deck. That was extremely powerful in a format where a lot of cards just couldn't actually do that sort of thing, and it led this card to be limited, which is what I talked about earlier. This thing has been banned since June 2017, and what's interesting is that this card probably came the closest to being used with polymerization. What's funny is that technically this card was being summoned with something called polymerization, but the real card is is Fusion Substitute, which has several bonus effects that really matter in a particular combo. So instead of just fusion summoning a monster like polymerization, this card lets you fusion summon a monster, but you have to use monsters you control as fusion material. So in that way, this card is actually a strict downgrade from polymerization. However, it has a very important graveyard effect that was ridiculous in combination with Norden. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one fusion monster in your graveyard, return to the extra deck, then draw one card. Now, does that really matter in a vacuum? Well, not really, but in a particular combo that people were using in Zodiacs, what this meant is that with multiple fusion substitutes, you could recycle that one copy of Norden and just keep drawing cards. The Zoo deck was already insanely consistent, and they had a card that can search any Beast Warrior in your deck, and one of the cards that they could search was Lunalight Black Sheep, which you could then discard to search polymerization. And even though this card's name on the printed card doesn't say polymerization in the title, it is technically always treated as polymerization, so you could search this card and just continue to combo off. It was like a super annoying combo, not necessarily because it got you so much advantage. I mean, that was very annoying. Your opponent went through a lot of cards, you summoned a lot of Zodiac monsters, you summoned Daigusto Emerald and drew some more cards, but more importantly, the reason this combo was so annoying is because it took forever. Like, if you didn't have a hand trap to stop this, your opponent just kept drawing cards and searching cards, and they didn't really end with like a crazy board. They just drew a bunch of cards and ended with a lot of back row and a lot of cards in their hand, and you just had to sit there watching them recycle their Norden like 2-3 times in one turn. Definitely not something fun to play against, and this is what led to Norden getting banned. So Norden was the closest thing to being summoned properly of all the things on this list, but in reality, a very important aspect of Fusion Substitute is that shuffle back and that draw. You couldn't just substitute in polymerization and get the same combo. And that brings us to Supreme King Dragon Starving Venom, which was the last fusion monster to be banned in the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG. The card that you have to understand first is something called Independent Nightingale, and what's important about this card is its last effect, which says once per turn you can inflict damage to your opponent equal to this card's level times 500. Now on this card, it's only 500 damage in a lot of cases because it's only level 1. The important part here, and we've brought up Instant Fusion a bunch of times now, but this card could be summoned with Instant Fusion, and then you could go into several Pendulum monsters that all happen to be dark and summon 2 copies of Supreme King Dragon Starving Venom. Once again, this card is not being summoned using polymerization. The main way that people were summoning this thing was its other effect that says you can special summon it by tributing the above cards you control, in which case you did not use polymerization, and all you had to tribute was 2 dark Pendulum monsters. Now, why does this matter? Well, it matters because this card has an ability that lets you copy the effect of something in your graveyard, and you could use those 2 cards, which were level 8, to copy the Nightingale, and then you could inflict over 8,000 damage to your opponent. You do 500 damage with the first copy of the Nightingale that you would summon because it's level 1, and then both copies of the Venom Dragons would inflict 4,000 damage each. That's 8,500 damage, and what made this combo so deadly is that unlike a lot of FTKs out there, this one fit into an already tier 1 deck, Pendulum Magicians. At the time, Pendulum Magicians were already the best deck. Everyone was already playing them, but that meant that you could then add this crazy FTK that admittedly didn't take that many card slots. You just had to change a few things, add a couple more dark monsters, and then you could play this crazy FTK if your opponent didn't have specific hand traps to stop it, and if they had hand traps to stop your FTK combo, you could still just do the normal Pendulum Magician combos and win that way. It's a very deadly combination because in most cases where FTKs are viable, that's all the deck can do, but because this deck was already part of Pendulum Magicians, it was just too much for one deck. It was a very popular strategy at YCS Memphis. That's kind of when everyone figured out that it was viable, and everyone in the top 82 pretty much was playing the Pendulum Magician FTK, and then it was banned in May of 2018. It's also worth noting that this was like the start of 2018 being sort of the year of FTKs. We had that FTK, we had Goki's extra linking you and Gumblaring you for like 4 cards in your hand, and then later on that year we'd have the Danger Dark World FTK, and 2018 really was the year of getting FTK'd, and this is the first one that sort of kicked it all off. At this point, I've reviewed every single banned fusion monster, every single banned Xyz monster, and every single banned Synchro monster, and I don't want to stop here. I love talking about Yu-Gi-Oh's history. I'm sure you guys have already figured that out by now, and now that I have that new Reddit post to go off of, it's a lot easier to make these videos, and I want to keep making them. Now, whether or not that's going to be link monsters or pendulum monsters or spells or traps, I mean, spells and traps and just normal effect monsters, that would be multiple videos that we're talking about, but I really do think it's important important to discuss the cards that have been banned or are currently banned, just to see how good the monsters can be, how good the cards can be. Because if something is making the ban list, it's like the cream of the crop. It's sort of the best cards that Konami has to offer, the most broken cards Konami has to offer of those respective types. And it's really been interesting looking at these fusion monsters, because compared to the Xyz and Synchro monsters, they're not really that powerful, but they're still good in their own right. And it's really funny that they all sort of avoid using polymerization. Anyway though, I'll see you guys later. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Goodbye.